So real quickly, I wanted to put a video out, just kind of walk you through, because this is something we're going to be using so many times this semester on how to calculate the mean using your TI 83 or 84. When you're inside of Hawks, let's pull this up so you can kind of see, where I'm looking at. Obviously we have in the directions in the slide, you've got this, they go through and they explain to you, you could do this by hand. Well, this is a small data set. We only have 7 data values. And so, but then they continue down and they show you that how you can do it, nice step by step. But I wanted you to kind of have some words and a background piece so that you didn't have to search and you felt comfortable. You could, kind of watch me do it on my calculator and then kind of tie it together with the screenshots that you see here in this spot. On your homework, you calculate the mean of not 7 data values. It could be 30 data values, and so doing it by hand isn't terribly difficult, but as we move along, there's other statistics or parameters that we'll want to be calculating, and we won't want to do it by hand. And so this is kind of like the stepping stone or the building block. So here we go. So calculator, pull it up, and I'm just going to clear my screen off. And so I want to put my data in, and so you can see here that they've got these commands, and that you start off and you're going to hit the stat key. The stat key is located right in the middle of the screen, keyboard, excuse me. Hit stat. You're going to choose number 1, edit, by pressing enter at the bottom right. All right, enter the data into L1. Well, here's a catch-22, because if you borrowed a calculator, then you wouldn't know this. Well, there's already stuff in L1. So you got a couple options. We have 2 buttons on our calculator. We have the delete key and we have the clear key. If you press clear right now, nothing happens. It just clears that one particular data value. So then if you press enter, it'll clear L1. But it didn't even clear it, did it? Left us 250. So clear in this case doesn't really do much for you when you're inside of a list. Delete will delete a number, so I can delete, 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 and I could sit here and I could delete all the numbers in that list by just keep hitting delete. But the other option is that you can go up on top. So watch where I'm blacked out right here on the first number in the list. I hit the up arrow. That takes me up to L1. So now I'm on top of the list. Now let's think about these 2 buttons again. If you press delete right now, you are going to delete this list, meaning that this list will disappear from that screen. If you clear the list, the word clear meaning to get rid of what's inside of it, so we press clear, and nothing happens. But what we have to understand is we haven't actually engaged it. We haven't implemented that command, so now we press enter to implement that command, and now you'll notice that L1 is gone. So if you happen to hit delete, if you do this process, you go up, you hit L1, you hit delete, and it goes away, then just email me instead of me kind of going extra here, and I'll help you out. All right, so back to the rules here. So it says now enter your data. All right, so our data for this guy is 5, enter, 6, enter, 8, enter, 10, enter, 4, enter, 6, enter, 9, enter. So we got our data in. Let's go back to the commands. So all of our data is entered in L1. Okay, so now we go back, we hit stat again, but this time we're going to go over to calc. So see across the top we got edit and calc and test. So we're going to go over to calc because we're going to do a calculation. And then our main calculation that we're going to use for this class, for 85% at least of this class, is going to be 1 variable stats, 1 var stats. So we choose number 1 by pressing enter. Okay. If you have a TI 83, you're going to get a slightly different screen. I have an updated version of the calculator, so I get this little fancier screen. By default, you go L1. Once again, if your screen's different, you're having difficulties, please reach out to me. We're not going to change the frequency of the list right now. We're going to leave that alone, and we're going to press calculate. So we go down to calculate at that point. All right. And what we see here is a list of items. And let me come back to this screen right here. Let me pull this over here like that. And let me hit pause for a minute and I'll come back to you. Okay, so just real quickly, like this video, like I said, is more so about us understanding what we're looking at here for future reference in the class. So we start off and across the top, we see, I'm going to put this away for a second. Actually, no, let me tell you about this. So what I have here is I have two screen captures. The first screen capture you can see is this right here. You can correlate the two across. You'll notice when you get down here where it says n equals 7, there's a down arrow. That means that if I hit the down arrow, it takes me down to some more stuff down towards the bottom, which is where my second screen of stuff over here comes from. All right. So let's talk about what this means. First one, X bar. We've already talked about this previously in the class. X bar is your sample mean. The next one on the list is this little symbol right here, and of course I always forget sigma, which means summation notation. So that's saying if we take all the x's and add them together, we get 48. Not going to use that. This guy right here is saying if we take all the x's, we square them, and then we add them together, it'll equal 358. We're not going to use that because we're going to be using technology to calculate our mean. All right. This one is very important, and this one is very important. All right. So this is our sample standard deviation. Now, we're not going to use this for a couple sections, but we're going to come back to this, and so that's why I'm talking about it now, is I'm just introducing it. So that's your sample standard deviation, and this is your population standard deviation. All right, so once again, a couple things here. I'm going to go ahead and cross this one off. I want you to know what it means. I want you to recognize that symbol, and I'll formally introduce it later. But the sample is what we're going to use. So our two guys off this top list that we'll be using is going to be our sample mean and our sample standard deviation. Today we're not using sample standard deviation, but just for future reference. Down at the bottom, oh, by the way, then you have n equals 7. Number n stands for the number of data values in the set. The number of data values in the set. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. N equals 7. Come down to the bottom, we see the n equals 7 listed twice, and then this is later on in the semester. I can't remember exactly when with the curriculum, but at some point we're going to end up talking about what's called the 5-number summary. The 5-number summary, and obviously I've used abbreviations there to write that out. So the minimum meaning that's the smallest data value in the set. The median means that's the middle value. So if you're doing median also for other data values in this particular section, you can do the median this way unless you want to do it by hand. And then you have the max, which is the highest number in the data set. In the middle here, we have the Q1, which is the 25% mark, and we have the Q3, which is the 75% mark. And like I said, we will formally come back and reintroduce that later. I just wanted to make sure you were comfortable with this idea of one var stats and what it does for you. All right, so calculating the mean with your TI-83, 84, and some other information to kind of help you or give you a preview of what we'll be doing inside the calculator.